It took Julia Ducournau a year of sitting in front of a computer, writing a couple of sentences and then deleting them, to come up with an idea for a film to follow her debut feature Raw. She didn't want to make what she felt people were expecting and hoping for, which she put as Raw 2, raw but more gory. And then she had a dream that she was giving birth to pieces of a car. And while Titane certainly isn't Raw 2, there's something of a continuation of the themes and ideas which Raw brought up, a look at the other side of the coin. I don't think it's a coincidence that Raw's lead actor, Garrett Marillier, also turns up here as a character also called Justine, in an almost passing of the baton to Agatha Roussell's Alexia, as if saying, I've been through my hell, now you go through yours. Whether she's the same character or not, we've seen a Justine thrown out into the world for the first time as a young person, discovering herself and in turn how dangerous it can be to hide her true personality, not just from those around her, but also from herself. All in order to be socially accepted, the idea of survival versus fitting in. Titane, on the other hand, having moved on from adolescence into different stages of adulthood, is about survival by fitting in, and how that can do just as much damage. We see the physical scars and field of bruises on the aging fire chief trying to hold authority and indeed his manliness by regularly injecting himself with steroids in sequences with a similar Frankenstein's monster energy to those of his returned son trying to hide himself and escape from the father he hasn't seen for 10 years. Meanwhile, there's the mental pain felt by the mother who feels she's lost some of her life by not being allowed to give up hope or move on, despite her best attempts to do so. She's wanted to grieve, she wants to grieve, but by not doing so has spent years treading in a state of stagnant emotion. And then we have Alexia, leading the more visual side of struggle and survival. It's through her perspective that we see the biggest elements of fantasy and body horror. After a messy, machine-like killing spree, she needs both somewhere and some way to hide. It's this particular strand which has been mentioned many times for exploring themes of gender identity and sexuality. Through hiding, Alexia perhaps begins to discover more about herself, including through the physical pain which she puts herself through in order to maintain a disguise which fits in with the world around her, linking back to that idea of the harm that can be done by trying to fit into binary society, alleged survival by fitting in. Through both arcs, the two main characters are lost, in very different ways, for very different reasons, fearfully performing to those around them in order to be accepted as people they're not, physically restricting and damaging themselves as they do so. The pain they experience and the chaos which is depicted on screen getting across not the mindset, but the feeling of the mind, the rushing thoughts and worries going on in the characters, and indeed who they may represent. A lot of this, while watching and after having seen the film, probably seems quite obvious, but I think that's the point. It's meant to be clear, not surface level, to better connect with us and bring us into this world of people who are, despite their best attempts, increasingly defying the perceptions around them. When Titane was awarded the highest honour at the Cannes Film Festival, the Palme d'Or, Julia Ducournau thanked the judges, led by Spike Lee, for letting the monsters in. She's mentioned having grown up watching films by Davids Lynch and Cronenberg, and anyone who's ever listened to Mark Kermode talk about her work will know she watched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the age of 6, while her parents were in another room at a dinner party. And I think there are some similarities in her work with Guillermo del Toro, although while he views monsters with a sense of wonder in his usual angle of humans are the real monsters, Ducournau demonstrates hers with a darkly empathic fascination. The monsters in Ducournau's films are people who themselves feel like monsters, lurking in the darkness of both the world and their minds as they try to blend in only to stand out more. What they're looking for is acceptance and control over themselves and their identities, which allows them freedom and the simple act of being able to be themselves. The world and indeed the human mind is a chaotic place, and Ducournau captures that with characters who have built up anger, sorrow and confusion, sometimes together forming one complicated, stressful clump bound to implode at some point, leading to an outburst of realisation, even if it is in the moment of being, or the moment after, it's too late. When it comes to Titane, the ideas of gender identity, sexual identity, toxic masculinity, realising who we really are and flesh versus metal, and how it may not even be a battle at all, are played with throughout, in an open way acknowledging it as a strange and messy process which can arrive at any time in life, although in real life perhaps not to the violent and fantastical extent which Ducournau depicts. all done with an occasionally wry smile, both in terms of some of the gore and other visuals we see, and some of the events which crop up over the course of the narratives. Some of those smiles towards the audience, others towards the characters, and not always the central figures. There are a number of quotes that I could use from reviews and even an episode of Bob's Burgers to try and sum up the film, if that can even be done. But I think that Titane does a good job of describing itself, as Vincent Lindon's character looks at his son and simply says, "I don't care who you are. You're my son, you'll always be my son, whoever you are." Ladies, gents, and everyone else, sit back, try to relax, and make sure to tighten your seatbelts. I really hope you enjoy the film. Titane.